The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Danny Laurel. Let's now take a look at the equities space. Taking a step back first and checking in on the U.S. markets, you can see a sea of green here, at least overnight. S&P 500 closed up by 1 3/10%. The Dow Jones as well up by 0.8%. Now, this was led by bets on softer inflation over in the U.S. might buoy the appetite for risk investments. Recall that the CPI figures in the United States will be coming out today, U.S. time. Now, another thing to be watching out for is the China CPI, and that's going to be coming out as well ahead of the U.S. print. And on the back of that as well, Asian equities following suit, seeing some green here. The Nikkei 225, the only one that seems to be sitting out this rally. But take a look at the Hang Seng, that's up by 0.7%. The rest of the market seem to be at least this general direction. As for the CPI in China, they are saying that the virus issue there, of course, the COVID-19 outbreak over in China is probably keeping inflation in check. Now, let's take a look at whether we are in the same boat. Now, recall that this comes from several days of trading sideways here, finally going back and feeling that refresher. We are up to 67.47. That's just around 0.6% this morning. This comes after some market briefings from two very important investment houses. The first, of course, is First Metro Investments. Tina Ulang mentioned that they are looking at 7,500 to close the end of 2023. That's about 11% upside still from Tuesday's close. Now, if you take a look at how we are doing when it comes to multiples, that would really mean a 15 times forward PE. Right now, we're trading just around 13.6 times 12 months price over earnings ratio, and that actually assumes around 15% of gains when it comes to the earnings of companies. She mentioned that the index might repeat what happened during the 1998, 2008, and 2018 performances during a crisis, or just right after recovering in a crisis, that the index gained sharply during those times. But she did state that it is still a bit expensive if you compare it to the S&P 500, if you compare it to the MSCI Asia Pacific indices, and she recommends companies with low debt and high capitalization. Now, as for sector, she's saying energy sufficiency, fuel, disruptive technology, renewables, and sustainability. Now, COL Financial, on the other hand, and while I report on that, I did want to just show my viewers here which ones are the big movers of this morning. COL is even more optimistic. They're looking at 8,100 here when it comes to the year-end or 2023 end of the PSE index. This, according to April Lynn Tan, she said this in an interview with Bloomberg TV's David Ingles and Rishad Salamat. They find the valuation of stocks really very cheap right now. So very interesting to be watching out for that. As we check in on the movers, BDO up by 2 3/10%, followed by Globe and SM Prime. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court declared as unconstitutional the 2005 Joint Maritime Seismic Undertaking deal between the Philippines, China, and Vietnam in the South China Sea. Now, according to the Supreme Court, the deal violated the Constitution by allowing wholly owned foreign companies to explore the country's natural resources. So under the Constitution, the state may enter into co-production, joint venture, or production sharing agreements with corporations or associations where at least 60% of capital is Filipino-owned for the exploration, development, and utilization of the country's natural resources. Respondents of the case argued that the constitutional safeguard was not applicable because the agreement was only for so-called pre-exploration activities. Now, the court shut down this claim and ruled that the oil company's intention to discover petroleum was considered exploration. Attorney Neri Colmenares, who served as the legal counsel against the deal, celebrated the Supreme Court's ruling. However, he expressed worries over possible amendments to the Constitution that may allow such deals to push through.
Malaking impact nito para sa susunod na mga presidente kasi dapat sundin ng ibang bansa katulad ng China kung mag-joint exploration sila dito sa West Philippine Sea ang konstitusyon natin. Baka naman ang gagawin dyan nila ay mapalitan ng konstitusyon at tanggalin yung 60-40 requirement. Huwag naman, and I'm urging the Filipino people to oppose any move sa Kongreso na palitan ng konstitusyon just to accommodate China.
Meanwhile, maritime expert attorney Jay Batongbacal believes that the Philippines should continue its exploration activities even if it has to do it alone. Batongbacal says that over 113,000 square kilometers of the area covered in the agreement is located in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone.
Yun yung subject nung Service Contract 72 na hawak ngayon ng Philex Energy. So, isa lang yun. No? So, hindi pa nga natin sasagawa yung full exploration. No? So, malamang mas malaki pa sana yung pwedeng matap sana sa Reed Bank kung matuloy na yung ating exploration activities.
And going back to my Bloomberg terminal here, you can see the mining and oil counter, of course, feeling very, very shaky at the moment. Just for a refresher, when that deal was signed between Shanghai and Beijing, rather, and the Philippines or Manila, of course, with President Bongbong Marcos, there was quite a rally in anticipation of at least an exploration deal on that. But of course, the court ruled, against this. This is according to Nikki Franco, which is at Abacus Securities, and because of this, you can see quite the slump since yesterday. PXP Energy yesterday slumped nearly 12%, and if you take a look at how that is continuing, it's even further below this morning. In the past 5 days, it's already lost around 13.3% in value. You've also got Oriental Petroleum that dropped more than 9% yesterday, not part of this counter, but nevertheless, quite some pain here. Atok Big Wedge also has some exposure over in the Sampaguita gas field that fell 1.5%. So again, whether this will have some a resolution to this issue, or whether the exploration will not be pushing through, at least joint exploration deal is still, of course, up in the air, and we will be checking in on that story continuously. Now we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Domestic departures after its pilot alerting notice to air mission system went out on January 11th. As of now, Biden says transportation officials have yet to identify the cause of the outage. The White House also says that there has been no evidence of a cyber attack so far.
Aircraft can still land safely, just not take off right now. We don't know what the cause of it is. They expect it in a couple hours they'll have a good sense of the cause of it. And we'll respond at that time.
But what exactly led to the meltdown of the United States' air traffic? Alan MacArthur, former administrator of the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, explains on Bloomberg why the FAA grounded thousands of flights. Let's listen in.
Remember, the NOTAM system, the Notice to Airmen system, is a system of convenience. The information contained in NOTAMs is of safety critical importance, and pilots need to have that information. But go back to where it used to be. You can get it through other means. It was designed to reduce the amount of radio transmission between ground control or the control tower or the en route center, so pilots could get this automatically. You still can get it from the tower. You still can get it from ground control. You still can get it through the en route center. You can get it through the company operations frequency. You can get it from the dispatchers. The general aviation community can get NOTAMs through their flight service stations. So you can still get that information in order to have the necessary safety information to the pilots. It's just that it was inconvenient.
Yeah.
The normal way of doing it is to get it through the NOTAM system, and that NOTAM system went down.
Well, I'm curious, Alan, there's been a lot of speculation about why they decided to ground everything, and there was some chatter here about the idea that there would be too much inequity between how each individual airline responded. So you would have some airlines that might have actually weathered this relatively decently, and then other airlines that basically wouldn't have been able to get any flights up. And so the idea was to try to be more equitable.
Yeah, I think this equity theme is a little bit overused, and especially when it comes to aviation. Airlines need to have contingency plans. They need to know how to get information to their pilots if they have had these kinds of problems. And some airlines have better dispatch systems and operations than others, and some don't.
So was this the FAA being extra cautious in light of Southwest's problems earlier this year to prevent another Southwest debacle?
I think the FAA would have been well served to tell airlines, get the information to your pilots through another means, and we'll get the NOTAM system up as soon as we can. But to have a complete ground stop across the country, that was way overkill.
Alan, given your career, not just with the FAA, but just in the aviation business, you've obviously dealt a lot with regulators in Washington, and we've already heard from several congressmen already sort of sharpening their knives, trying to figure out what changes they might want to try to force upon the FAA. If you had the ear of some of these Congress members, I mean, what would you advise them to do, or would you advise them not to do anything?
Well, I advise them to learn about the system. We have a lot of people talking about as if they understand the aviation system, and they really don't. And I think one of the jobs of the FAA and of the industry is to make sure that our elected officials are at least knowledgeable of what's going on out there so that they don't jump to these conclusions.
Okay, having said that, what is one change that can be made, that should be made, if Congress can ever get around to reaching consensus on anything?
Well, I think there's already a Transportation Oversight Committee, but I think to encourage the FAA to modernize its NOTAM system so that it is up to the task of the current demands, that would certainly be helpful and give them the resources to do so.
Car sales here in the Philippines jumped 31% in 2022, exceeding the industry target on the back of surging demand. Now, data from vehicle manufacturing groups show that automotive sales reached over 352,000 units as of December. That's a 31.3% higher compared to the 268,000 units in 2021. The January to December sales also exceeded the forecast of 336,000 units. Now, commercial vehicles accounted for over 75% of overall sales, while passenger vehicles made up the rest. The groups say that the improvement in car sales is strong evidence that the industry has recovered from the pandemic and other external challenges. For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online, or visit our website, onenews.ph. For more in-depth analysis, you can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now. That's at www.signalplay.com, and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Danny Laurel. Join us again. That's at 11:15 a.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.